Hey, Randy? I asked, standing in the doorway to the bedroom. Where did this doll come from? I think your mom must have sent it, said my husband from the other room. I found it this morning. You found it? I questioned, looking over my shoulder. I couldn't see him, though. Randy called back. Yeah, out in front of the door. It was in a box and everything. And you just, what, assumed that my mom would send us a really weird doll? I walked over to where it was sitting on the bed and poked at the old-fashioned rag doll. It was fully fabric, with big black button eyes and black strands of yarn hair twisted into pigtails on either side of her head. She was wearing a simple black cotton dress with a white collar. Randy said, I mean, where else would it come from? Literally anywhere. Maybe one of the neighbors left it? I suggested, picking the doll up. It wasn't dirty, and it didn't smell, but I had a hard time actually touching it. Who knew where it had been before here? Like, a welcome into the apartment kind of thing? Randy laughed. That's even more ridiculous than your mother sending it. No one does welcome gifts anymore. Yeah, all right, he had a point. And even if someone was going to send a welcome gift, it would obviously be something more along the lines of cookies, a cake. Even a Jell-O mold would have made more sense than this thing. I just knew that my mother wouldn't have sent anything like this. I tossed the doll back onto the bed and asked him where the box was. But he had already thrown it out, along with a bunch of the other boxes that he had emptied out after doing some unpacking. Why would you toss it before I could get a look at it? I asked. Randy said, because it was just a box. I'm telling you, it didn't have anything on it. No return label? If there was a return label on it, I would have known whether your mom had actually sent it or not, said Randy. You're thinking too hard on this. It's, I don't know, something. I frowned. Do you think it's some kind of a prank? Randy asked me, what kind of a prank involves sending a doll to someone who just moved into your apartment building? It could have a camera in it. I picked the doll back up. You know, like those bears that were on the news. Randy walked over to me and hugged me from behind. Honey, there is no camera in the doll. It's just cloth and stuffing. Come on, you know this. Why would anyone put a camera in it? To be a creep, I muttered. But at his insistence, I tossed the doll back onto the bed. Why else would you put a camera in anything? Randy turned me to face him. He put his hands on my shoulders, reassuring me, and said, Look, I promise you that this is not the big deal that you're making it out to be. You don't think so? I couldn't keep the concern from my voice. Randy said, I seriously don't. You're just stressed over the move, that's all. We had only moved into this apartment about 4 days ago, and the place was kind of a mess. We were kind of a mess, desperate to make something out of ourselves, despite everything that life had thrown our way so far. Randy was working in the kitchen, and I went to help. We got so invested in the unpacking and the cleaning that the doll totally slipped my mind. At least, it did, until Randy went to go get a shower later that night. He had only been out of the room for a few moments, like not even long enough for me to finish opening up the next box. Ha ha, he said, coming back into the kitchen. Real funny. What? I asked. Randy held up the doll by one hand. The doll's little legs hung limp. Why would you put this in the bathroom? I mean, at least you got over being creeped out by it, but still. I frowned at him, my mouth pulling into a thin line. Why would I put it in there? Well, someone did. He tossed the doll onto the kitchen table. Not funny. And then he left, and a moment later, I could hear the water in the bathroom come back on. I went over to prod at the doll. But she was just stuffing and fabric. Her button eyes seemed dark and daunting, like they were staring up at me. "You're kind of horrifying, aren't you?" I asked. The doll didn't answer. You know, because it was a doll. "How did you get in here, huh?" I poked at her again, right in the chest, and then felt over her face. I don't feel where a camera could have been stuffed. If it's not a camera, what are you hiding? Again, the doll didn't answer me. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I couldn't help but feel like those black button eyes were watching me. How could something so small get to me this badly? I tried to brush it aside and go back to unpacking, but couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was watching me. I grabbed it and tossed it into one of the empty boxes, folding the flaps down. Just getting it out of sight helped, and I was finally able to get back to my work, now that I was certain that the doll itself couldn't see me. It was still in there when Randy came back out of the shower 20 minutes later, with a towel wrapped around his head like a 70s-era housewife. He looked amused. "I didn't say you had to get rid of it. Just don't put it in the bathroom again." "I don't like that thing," I told him stubbornly. "Put it out with the trash in the morning." I could tell that Randy thought that was stupid, but he humored me anyway and left it in the box. We were only up for an hour or two after that, before crawling into the bedroom. The mattress was still on the floor, our room the last to be unpacked. That didn't bother us. We dropped onto it and got under the sheets. I curled up with Randy. Sleep took me fast. But I didn't stay in dreamland. A strange sound woke me up. I had rolled onto the other side of the bed during the night, so that Randy was at my back. I pushed myself up onto one elbow. "Did you hear that?" Randy was silent. I reached behind me and shook his arm. It flopped onto the bed behind him. "Randy?" Still no answer. I grabbed his shoulder and he rolled onto his back, still in the dark, motionless. Starting to get concerned, I reached over and turned on the bedside table lamp. Light flooded the room, illuminating the deep red stains that had been spilled over the top of the mattress, and my husband's shirt. His eyes were open and staring straight ahead, glossy and lifeless. I screamed, throwing myself out of the bed. The blankets tangled around my feet and I fell backwards onto the floor. A knife was jammed into his chest, one that had come from the kitchen. "Randy!" I screamed it, the word ripped from my throat like a saying from a pull-cord doll. I backed away, trying to put distance between myself and the bed, and the corpse of my husband. I managed to get the sheets off of my legs and get onto my feet. There was blood on the blanket, and on my hand. It had happened while he was sleeping. Randy hadn't even had a chance to try and fight back. He had just been sleeping. It hit me that someone could still be in the house. And that is when I saw it. Sitting there, at the end of the bed, was the doll. She had blood on her white cloth hands. Her button eyes glinted in the dim light of the bedroom. And I knew that it was her. I knew it. Of course, the cops didn't believe me when they showed up. How could a doll kill a full-grown man? How could she have gotten out of the box? They thought that whoever had sent the doll must have come back and left it as a calling card for the murder. But I knew better. Something was wrong with that doll. And even though I had moved all the way to the other side of the country, I knew that one day she would find me again. And when she did, she would kill me.
Subscribe today or beware.